What's up everyone, welcome back to the E4 series. Last time we looked at the Open Sicilian after d6 here, and then we kind of looked at this with knight of 6 and then the freak attack. Oh, I'm sorry, why I left like this. a6, rook g1, this is the freak attack, so we looked at last time. But today I wanted to look at something else, the other Sicilian variations. Like for example, the Kalashnikov variation that goes like this. Here like this, the Kalashnikov variation, the Sveshnikov variation, and also the Taimanov variation, and the dragon variation as well. So let's just start with the dragon variation, and I'm going to look at a game with you where Magesh Panchanathan played the white pieces against Gadir Guzainov with the black pieces. He started off with knight f3, which is the ready opening, but as you see after g6, it's gonna transposition, like this, c5, and after this, and knight c6, c4. This is the variation I want to look at with you today. This is called the Marozzi bind, and why I think this is so good is because in the usual dragon setups, white is going to play d6, e6, going to put a knight on f6, and try to play for d5. But obviously with these pawns here, that's not going to be very easy for black. So that's why I kind of like this, because d5 is very hard and practically impossible to achieve. And white and black kind of has to settle for passive positions with the bishop going to e7 or to e6. And yeah, that's why I like it. It's very comfortable and it's also very good and tactical. So I'm just going to show you the game. Knight f6, knight c3. And now he took here, which is a variation. It's not the best, but it's definitely good. And here this is just normal stuff. As you can see, this is the kind of the structure you get. Most of the times you'll play b3 as well. And as you can see, this light squared dominance is really showing, and that's why you can never trade this bishop. I'm gonna show you why right now, because opponent shoots a5, which is a variation. Usually bishop to e6 here is played, putting some pressure here and just developing the bishop. But he played a5, and now Magesh played knight to a4, which is very good, because as you see in the pawn move to a5, it stopped guarding b6, and now the light squares here, as you can see, are very weak. So he just tries to take advantage of this. He played knight d7, trying to guard, and it's already a bad move because it's a waste of time. Now this bishop is bad, and this knight is also not doing a lot. And now just rook to d1, queen to c7, and now b3. As you can see now, this kind of formation has been built with the pyramid here. Usually in these positions, when the knight is settled on f6, the point is to go knight d5, and then if black takes, you take. It always depends if you take with the e-pawn or the c-pawn. Usually when you take with the c-pawn, you already have a presence on the c-file and try to play on the queen side. But if you take with the e-pawn, you can play on the king side and go for f4, f5, h4, h5, and stuff like that. So you're knight to c5, and now he just went back to c3. Now the knight can also go to d5 and hold some key squares here. Bishop to e6, and now this bishop to e2 develops. Rook f to c8. Castles, queen d8, king h1, and here is also the end of the point. As you see, f3 has been played, and now king h1 also prepares stuff like this. So his opponent chose a4, which is again a mistake because this allows b4. And as you can see here with the knight on d5, right here, white just has way too much space, and now b5, which is another mistake, just took, and we have this position. Bishop to d3, and white just has a ton of space. Well, black's pieces really aren't doing anything. I guess this rook is active. If you could support it on the c-file, that would be good. But this bishop really isn't looking anywhere. This knight is not really doing a lot. This queen isn't going anywhere, and white's pieces are just way more active. He has the bishop here, and now white used these pawns to kind of draw black's piece to the queen side. And now after queen g4, he now tries to go for a kingside attack. And with these rooks here, now he pushes the pawn, and this is just simplification. Here, a nice little thing, removing the knight, because the knight could have actually covered or attacked the pawn right here. And now, when you remove the knight, you just could go here. And yeah, this is just wraps. This is just the one game. Obviously, I enjoyed the end of the game, but after rook to f1, this is threatened. This rook is here. King's just gonna get mated. Queen f4 is here the best move. Sacking the queen, and yeah, this is over. So this was kind of an example of how you can win with this opening. So basically what he did, I'm just going to go through it again quick, is he used these dark square weaknesses first, and then he just went for the usual plan with this knight d5. I mean, he also got lucky because his opponent made some crucial mistakes here with a4, and then at the end of the day, he just got a passed pawn. The opponent had a stack material, and he just won, which was quite easy. But looking at some other variations, this is hyper-excellent dragon. This is what we just had, and now this usual setup with c4, bishop to e3, and this. In these positions, you always have to be careful about knight to g4, because if your opponent gets knight to g4 and he's going to get this bishop away from you, and this is going to be very, very bad for you. So you have to always play bishop to e2 and then eventually f3. Castles, castles, and now bishop to d7. As I said, he kind of has to settle for this kind of passive setup, or you could go bishop to e6, which is both fine. And the plans don't really change. If he takes here, which is somewhat similar to what we see, you always take with the bishop here. And queen to d3, and you're just a bit better here. This is plus 0.6, as you can see. So going back to this bishop d7 line, knight to c2 here, and you're just saying you can't get my knight now. This knight is now doing basically nothing, and this knight is going to maybe go to e3 to support d5, and yeah, queen to a5, bishop to d2, and now king to h1, stepping out this diagonal, or g1 to h7, and maybe trying to put the rook on g1. And yeah, I mean, this opening is very similar. This opening is very simple to play. All you basically have to know is the setup. Like, I can just show you a few moves. This is kind of the setup that you're going to get most of the time. And then if they try something like this, you just play b3, and you're going to go for something like this kind of setup where you put the knight on d5. And yeah, I already told you the rules. If he takes here you take with the e pawn because you don't have any play on the c file. So this is fine, obviously, but you just open up the c file for no reason. And you go here and then f4, f5 maybe. Now let's actually look at some of the other variations. You know, we spent a lot of time on the dragon, but let's look at some of the other variations. Let's start off with knight to c6, and let's just start off with the Taimanov. e6 here, and knight to c3, and now queen to c7, which is the Bastrikov variation. Knight c to b5, and here he really only has one good move. Like, he can play queen b6, queen d8, queen f5, but those are no good. You could look at them yourself. It's no big deal. But queen to b8 is the only real move. And now f4. It's a very aggressive opening. a6. You can just go knight to c3 back. Knight takes, queen takes, and now b5. You can see the idea of queen b8 already. It's to put the bishop here. Bishop e2, bishop to e3, bishop b7, and now just long castles. You have a great position here. This is threatened. And let's something like a knight f6. You don't actually have e5 here because knight e5, no, like a holding, but you actually go bishop to e2, and now you just bring the rooks and you have a great position. And this is really not that hard to study. You're going to get the same games every time, and you're just going to get great positions. I don't actually think the Bastrikov variation for black is very good. Now let's look at something different, which is called the Kalashnikov variation. A very badass name, and this again is not very hard to play. Open Sicilian is really not that much theory. So this is technically called the Löwenthal variation. After this. Queen to c7, e7, and now you just go queen to d1, and after something like d6, you go knight to c3, and you're going to develop normally, and this is just fine. Here actually you go bishop g5, bishop e6, and now knight to d5. And knight to d5 is kind of the theme with all these Kalashnikov variations, because d6 and this square is always kind of weak. But let me show you the thing that you're going to see the most. Is not a6 here, but d6, just the Kalashnikov variation. Knight to c3, a6, knight to a3, and now knight to f6 should go back to the Sveshnikov variation soon, but b5 is the main move here. Knight to d5, knight f6 is again a transposition to the Sveshnikov after this. And that's what you're going to see a lot. You're going to see a lot of transpositions. So let's now look at the Sveshnikov variation, which is after knight to c6. Here not e5, but knight to f6. This is the Sveshnikov. Knight c3, e5. Knight here, d6. And now bishop to g5, a6, knight a3, b5, now knight e5. This is the main thing. Bishop e7, bishop takes, and I just go c3. And the plans here is because you got rid of this bishop, the knight on e3 sounds really good. So you have to go here, and then you can develop your bishop to d3, e2, and you're just gonna have a great position. And if they play something like bishop g5 here, which is the best move, as you can see, knight c2, knight to e7, and now a4. He takes a4, and now bishop to c4, and you're just a bit better. This is very simple to play. You can get a little bit tactical oftentimes, but it's fun. One more thing to mention here, if they take with the pawn, trying to go for f5, you just have knight e3 immediately and just taking this d5 square. Now if they don't go b5, because it's a bit scary to go for b5 as black, because after variations with c4, you actually have to sack a pawn, but if they go bishop d7 here, you just take. And now g takes is actually possible. But bishop takes is still the best move, and now knight to c4, and you're threatening this, and here this is kind of the gambit. Queen takes, bishop e6, long castle, so you're threatening the queen, and something like bishop to d7, here, here, and I just trade everything, because you're a pawn up, so really no big deal. Now I just take the d5 square. This is nothing to be afraid of, this is completely easy for white. So let's look at one final variation, which is e6 here, the French variation. So to say, d4, take, d4, take, as usual, and now knight to f6. And here you may be thinking, e5, wow, that's a good move, he just blundered. This knight is going to have to go here, now c4, but no, queen to a5 wins the pawn, and you're stupid. So you should not play e5, you should play knight to c3, and after knight to c6, now you can take, and now you play e5. After knight d5, you play knight to e4, trying to go into here, because this would be devastating. Queen to c7, threatening the pawn, and not allowing knight to d6, f4. And here there are two lines, queen to b6, but also f5. But also f5. f5 is not that dangerous, you just take. And you're just a bit better here after something like bishop to d2, bishop to e7, and queen h5 check. And you're just getting in. It's d4, something like this, just bishop to e2. And you're just better, this king is weak. His pieces are pushed back. It's just a bit better. Now if they try the main variation, queen b6, you just go c4. It's a very strong move. Knight to e3. Now queen to d3, attacking this knight. And yeah, white gets very active in this variation. Bishop to d2, bishop to a6, and now just simply bishop takes b4, queen b4, and now king to f2, which is a very, 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 very important move to remember. Let's say if they take here, you just always have queen to d4, pinning here, you're just winning after something like this. Now though, knight f5 is the main move, and now just queen to c3, and you're trading queens here, and you're fine. You have open lines, you have active pieces, king is active in an endgame, and yeah, you just, king e7, g4, you're just a bit better here. And I would definitely like to play this position as white. So that was it. Now we've covered almost every Sicilian variation there is, at least every important variation. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you can learn a lot from this, and I hope you could bring yourself to play the Open Sicilian and realize it's not actually that much theory. Like it's really not a lot. This is basically all you have to know. Maybe look into the sidelines a little bit, but it's not that deep. And it's just it. Yeah, I would definitely recommend playing this, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.